Sanding mistakes can completely ruin your furniture. I'm talking about peeling paint, chipping paint, and scratches that show through. But don't worry, I'm Natalie with A Ray of Sunlight. I have been painting furniture since 2014, and I have made all of the mistakes. And I am here to show you what mistakes to avoid. In this video, I am breaking down the most common sanding mistakes that people make and showing you exactly how to avoid them. Stick around because these tips are going to make your furniture look flawless. Let's get started. The number one mistake that people make is not sanding at all. Okay, you're watching this video, you already know this is an issue. But here's the thing. Most paint companies out there say that you don't have to sand your furniture before you can paint. And that's just not true. There are only a couple of paints that I would actually trust to stick to my furniture. Otherwise, when you go to actually use the piece of furniture or your kids bump a toy into the furniture, you're all of a sudden gonna have scratches and chips all over your furniture. Trust me, I have seen this time and time again. Now, granted, even if you sand before you paint your furniture, there is a chance that your paint is going to chip or scratch off still, and that's just paint. But if you want to give your paint a fighting chance at looking good for a really long time, you've got to sand before you paint. But hold up, I'm not talking about going crazy and sanding it down to bare wood. I am talking about a really simple scuff sand, and I'll get into that a little bit later. The next mistake is not cleaning before sanding. Now, this sounds really counterintuitive. I completely understand. Here's the thing. Old furniture like this, there's a lot of grease, oils, grime, nail polish, stickers, anything that you use in your regular life gets onto your furniture. Now, if you don't remove that before you paint your furniture, obviously you're not going to end up with a good finish. But did you know that oils and wax, grease, grime, when you sand that with a power sander or even by hand, you're softening that oil, you're making it melt into the wood grain, and that in the future can cause issues. So we like to clean before we do any sanding just to avoid this issue. I personally like to use Crud Cutter. It is an oil and grease cutter. It does amazing things around the house as well as on furniture. It doesn't remove the finish, but it cuts through grease and grime really easily. So I just spray it on and then I use a damp old rag that I don't care about and I wipe it off. Some areas need a little bit of extra elbow grease, but you know, it comes off pretty easily. Mistake number 3 has to do with sandpaper. Using too coarse of sandpaper will ruin your wood underneath the paint. Using sandpaper that is very coarse, like this 80 grit sandpaper, is just going to leave scratches in your wood, and you will be able to see those scratches underneath the paint. Even if you use 150 grit sandpaper like this purple one, it is still going to leave scratches in your wood, and you will still see those through the paint. I use 220 grit sandpaper when I sand before painting. 220 grit sandpaper is technically a fine sandpaper. You don't need anything more coarse than 220 grit sandpaper to help your paint stick. All you're looking to do is to scuff up the finish just a little bit so it's not super slick, so then your paint can stick. Now, I liken this to having a brand new cell phone. It doesn't have a case on it, it is super slick, and it is going to fall out of your hands very easily. But if you put a case on it, especially a case that isn't slick like glass on it, you will be able to hold on to it so much easier. The same thing happens with your paint. If you paint a super slick surface, your paint does not have anything to hold on to. It's just gonna fall right off. Once anything bumps into it or you're vacuuming around it, oh, you hit the vacuum against your furniture and oh, now there's chips in the paint. That is exactly what happens if you do not scuff sand before you paint your furniture. But here's the thing, scuff sanding is super easy. Take this piece of sandpaper for example. I like to fold it in half And then I like to fold it into thirds afterwards, and I end up with these small little sheets of sandpaper. And then I fold that in half and I hold it like this, and then I can just rub it all over the furniture. This should take 5-10 minutes. It should not be a big deal. Mistake number 4 is actually using your power sander to scuff sand before painting. Here's why it's an issue. See this really flat surface? If you go to sand any curves, any details, your sander is too aggressive for that, and it is going to start sanding down those curves and changing the look of your furniture. Not only that, a lot of furniture is made with wood veneer, and this is very aggressive. It will sand through the really, really thin sheet of wood veneer on your furniture, and then all of a sudden you've ruined it and you have to paint it. You can't stain it at that point, unless you know what you're doing. So instead of using this really thin sandpaper with your electric sander, use foam sanding pads instead. This is a really cheap foam sanding pad. You just attach it to your sander and then you put your sandpaper right here. But the best part is that you can actually sand curves without destroying the curves. Even better than this cheap foam pad are the Surf Prep foam pads. These are more flexible, and when you put them on, they bend even more. So you're not going to destroy the curve or the nice pretty curves on this drawer because of the flat sandpaper with the sander. With this, you can easily sand those curves without any issue. And now the last mistake, and the one that nobody ever talks about, is what happens if you paint over scratches like this end table has. See these scratches? If we paint over them, you're still gonna see them. So instead of just leaving those scratches or even wood filling those scratches, sand the scratches down. Now you have to be careful because a lot of furniture has a wood veneer, right? And if you sand too much, you're gonna sand through that wood veneer. So you've gotta be careful. I recommend using 220 grit sandpaper when you're using a power sander to sand out scratches like this. But trust me, if you use any type of wood filler on those really shallow scratches, you're still going to see the scratches through the paint. So it is best to just remove the scratches like that, especially on the top of your furniture. You're still gonna see them, so just get rid of them first, but be careful as you do it. Don't skip the sanding step if you want your paint to last. Trust me, I completely understand. Sanding before painting is not the most glamorous. I would love to skip it too. I just want to get on to the painting. But I also have made plenty of mistakes to know that if we skip sanding before we paint, the paint's not going to last as long. Now for just a couple of quick tips. Don't overthink it. Just quickly, lightly sand the whole entire surface. You just need to scuff up the surface. You do not need to go down to raw wood. You're just looking to make the surface a little bit more dull and to scuff it up to give the paint something to hold on to. Just fold up some 220 grit sandpaper and quickly sand it. It should take 5 to 10 minutes to sand. And then obviously don't forget to clean off the dust after you've sanded. I like to use a shop vac to suck up most of the dust and then a tack cloth to make sure all of the dust is off. If you found these tips helpful, please give us a big thumbs up and don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any more furniture painting tips. And hey, I would love to hear from you. Have you ever made any of these mistakes, or would you add any other mistakes to my list? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and happy painting! Are you confused and not sure where to start with your furniture makeover? Don't worry, I got your back. Click the link in my comment to download our free painting checklist so you can paint your furniture as if you hired a professional to do it.